Namaste everyone, myself Prakash and we are from Global South Forum, and we are very fortunate to have the gracious presence of Ambassador KP Fabian. Before starting the interview, I would like to give a brief introduction about Ambassador Fabian. Ambassador KP Fabian is an Indian diplomat who served in the Indian Foreign Service between 1964 and 2000, during which time he was posted to Madagascar, Austria, Iran, Sri Lanka, Canada, Finland, Qatar and Italy. During his time in the diplomatic service, he spent 3 years in Iran 1976 to 1979, witnessing the Iranian Revolution firsthand. As Joint Secretary of the Gulf Division, Ambassador Fabian coordinated the evacuation of over 1,76,000 Indian nationals from Iraq and Kuwait in 1990 and 1991. His multilateral experience includes representing India at the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, International Atomic Energy Agency, International Civil Aviation Organization, Food and Agriculture Organization, World Food Programme and the International Fund for Agriculture Development. Ambassador Fabian has also authored 2 books, one which is Common Sense on the War on Iraq and the other book is Diplomacy, the Indian Style. Ambassador Fabian was also a visiting professor at Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He held the position of KPS Menon Chair at Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam, Kerala. Ambassador, now we would like to give us a brief introduction about what Global South Forum is. So we are a group of young research scholars who are mainly trying to, we believe that the international system is very much biased toward West and US. So we are trying to bring the issues of Global South, the third world country at the forum. So this is a brief introduction about us, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be with you. Just to add, my book on the Arab Spring,
Okay.
title is The Arab Spring That Was and Wasn't. That has been published by Macmillan Education just last week.
Okay.
And that was a book.
Congratulations, Ambassador.
Thank you. That was a book commissioned by the Indian Council of World Affairs.
Okay, Ambassador. So can we start the conversation?
Please.
So I would like to, as I was preparing the introduction of yours, I saw like you have worked with the multilateral organizations a lot. So sir, can we start that with the question that, there is a question in everyone's mind that has the United Nations failed to keep its responsibility as a world peace organization?
Well, let me put it this way. After all, what is the United Nations?
What is it?
See, United Nations can be described as an international organization which the member states have formed. That is one way of looking at it. Another is that the United Nations per se, by itself, is not an actor. It is a forum where the member states get together, speak to each other, make proposals. The member states may or may not agree. So I think it will be more correct to consider, to look at the United Nations as a forum. So if the United Nations have failed, it only means the member states have failed. Now, to be more precise, it doesn't mean all the member states have failed. It means the member states which have the clout, who have the clout to preserve peace or to prevent war, they have failed. Now, who are these people? Very briefly, they are what you call the P5, the permanent 5.
members.
You know them.
United States,
Yes.
France, China, Russia, and the fifth one is
Well, Germany, I'm sorry, UK, United
Kingdom.
These are the 5.
Right.
Now, how did they become the P5, meaning the permanent 5? Let us dig into history. World War II was on. That means, the way you put it, the League of Nations had failed.
Yeah.
But again, I would say it is not the League of Nations that failed,
It's a forum.
but
The state.
the member states who had the clout. Okay, and at that time, you see, if you look at it, the member states who had the clout: Germany, United Kingdom, France. United States was not a part
Yeah,
of it,
that-
as you know.
They were living in an isolation phase.
Yes, I mean, Wilson wanted it, but the American Senate did not agree. In the American Senate, in the system, it is with the consent and advice of the Senate that foreign policy decisions are taken. So, and Russia, Soviet Union was there, but not as considered very important. Not considered very important. Japan was there. Okay. Now, when the World War II was on, at some point the expression United Nations was coined. Now, as we know, it was the United Nations was the title or the name for those who were fighting against Germany, against Japan, against Italy. They were united in war.
Okay.
I mean, original,
From there, the word comes.
yeah, the United Nations. You see, there was a declaration, you know. So that, anyway, that's only a matter of language, okay? But the United Nations Charter was finalized in San Francisco, 1945, and it said to protect succeeding generation from the scourge of war, which more than one occasion, you know, affected our generation. Okay. Now, Franklin Roosevelt, FDR, the American president, it was his brainchild to have a new international organization. And he said, in the global village, if you have got 5 armed policemen and the rest of the village being disarmed, well, there will be peace. So he initially, I said 5, but actually he started with 4. That is United States, Soviet Union, United Kingdom, and China. These were the 4. France was not there in Franklin Roosevelt's mind. So when the idea was broached to Churchill, well, you know Churchill, he was scandalized. China? So, but at the same time, Churchill is he knows how to bargain. He knew that Roosevelt will not agree to taking out China. So he said, well, I will agree to China if and if only France is brought in.
Okay.
Now, at that time, France had not even been liberated. Okay? Operation Normandy was going to take place, you know. But Churchill said, and he was able to make Roosevelt agree to take in France. Stalin, he again was scandalized that China should be there. I mean, an Asiatic power sitting in judgment over us Europeans, but he also knew that Roosevelt will not agree to take out China. So he accepted, but subject to some concessions on the language of the charter. Okay. And later, the veto system was introduced. Veto means Latin. Veto, I forbid.
I forbid. Okay.
You know, that is the meaning of the word. So that was introduced. But then America so to it that it's only on substantive matters, not on procedural matters. I mean, suppose United States wanted to have a discussion on a topic. Well, the Soviet Union cannot say no. Okay, but when it comes to taking a decision, passing a resolution, then one of the P5 can say veto. Which means at that time, there were 10 members, sorry, 9 members, sort of, 5 plus 4, you know what I mean. And the resolution needed the concurrence of the 10 members. You can just double check. Okay. Later it became 15.
5 permanent and 10 non-permanent.
Yeah. That is because of the campaign for reforming the Security Council. Okay. But it says that as far as the Security Council is concerned, you need the concurrent votes of
the 5 permanent members.
Now, the thing is this, those Roosevelt thought will be the policemen who will maintain law and order, they have been the principal offenders. They have committed most of the, what shall we say, crimes.
True.
Either they have committed themselves or they have promoted, supported,
their allies in
protected others who have committed the crime.
True.
So Roosevelt's basic philosophy was wrong. And that is why you see a paralyzed Security Council, you see. But if I may say so, the United Nations, you should look at it in 3 parts. One, of course, is the Security Council, very powerful, but sorry to say, not delivering. Okay? Then there is the Secretary General. Secretary General plus a Secretariat. Now, the Secretary General has been delivering, meaning wherever there is a conflict, if the situation permits, he sends a special envoy. You know, in Libya, for example, there is an American diplomat, Stephanie. She's working very hard, and at one point there were 2 governments. She made them become one. Now, of course, it has become almost 2. But the point is, election was supposed to be held in December. But I mean, she made progress. You take East Timor. The United Nations Secretary General's Special Envoy was able to have a ceasefire and peaceful election. So, that is very important. That is that part, the Secretary General plus Secretary, that works.
And then the General Assembly.
Then General Assembly is there, but the General Assembly, you see, it passes resolutions, but they don't have enforcement. Okay?
Right.
But take apartheid, for example. Well, the Assembly resolution worked over a period of time, not immediately. Then the other part is the specialized agencies, FAO, Food and Agriculture, World Food Program, IAEA,
International Atomic Energy Station.
They work. Okay? So, don't look at the United Nations as a single monolithic body. Look at the parts which work and look at the parts which don't work.
Okay, Ambassador, so I'll have a question on the part that didn't work, which is United Nations Security Council. So as you were mentioning, when UN came to power, it was made by those who were like independent sort of countries. The countries of Africa, or let's suppose the India was not, India was one of the founding members, but it didn't have that, and it was at that time not willing to take that stage. So do you think the UN Security Council as a body is obsolete, and since it does not represent the major contemporary states today, like India is the second largest population, India has the second largest population, but still it is not a member of the UN Security Council body. Similarly goes for the African continent. African continent has 54 countries, but none of the countries got representation in UN Security Council permanent membership. So, Ambassador, do you see the Security Council body as obsolete, like it is a thing of the past, or what?
Okay.
Should the permanent members be replaced, or the number of members be increased? What are the possible viable alternatives available?
Okay, so we are talking about the Security Council reform.
Yeah.
That's a basic
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
The charter has to be rewritten.
Yeah.
But before that, you made a statement. India was. Did you say India was not willing, or India? What did you say about India?
I was mentioning why India was not given. Some people say that I don't know if it's a myth, or I don't agree with the fact that Nehru was offered the permanent secretariat, but he didn't. He said we don't want it. On that, and I don't support this. Whether this is a myth, you can clear on this.
All
side.
right. So my answer will be in two parts. First, let us look at what happened with India's permanent seat and the Security Council. Now there is a story going round that when Jawaharlal Nehru was the Prime Minister, India was offered a seat, permanent seat, twice. Once by the United States and the second time by the Soviet Union. Now, as a matter of fact, this is historically incorrect. You see, in 1949 October, the most important event in world history at that time, China stood up. Mao Zedong declared, China has stood up. Now, to go back, the China that was made a permanent member by Roosevelt was the Republic of China, led by Chiang Kai-shek. Okay? Now, during the Second World War, Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong, for a while, they cooperated against the Japanese. But once the Japanese were out, they started fighting. Okay? But the China that was signed the San Francisco Charter in October was Republic of China, Chiang Kai-shek's representative. Okay. So when in 1949 October, Mao Zedong took over power in the mainland and Chiang Kai-shek fled to Formosa, in all logic, Washington should have recognized the new government and done business with it. But instead, President Truman, he decided not to recognize China, but to propagate the myth that the Republic of China in Little Formosa represented the whole of China. Nehru told Truman when he visited 1950, listen, this is not right. You should talk to China, and China should be in the United Nations. China, meaning PRC, People's Republic of China. Truman didn't like it. Incidentally, just Nehru spent more than 2 weeks during that visit in 1950 in the United States. He went round addressing various gatherings. Truman himself came to the airport to receive him. In fact, Truman sent his plane to Nehru in London. Nehru was coming via London, you know. And not only Truman, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, everybody who counted was at the airport. Why? Couple of reasons. One, the Nehru's prestige. India, we didn't say that India stood up. Well, you will remember Nehru's famous words. The moment comes in the, you know.
Even the nations.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's a different style of speaking. Okay. So, they were there partly because of Nehru's prestige, but equally, if not more important reason, United States had quote unquote lost China. So they wanted to have India. So they told Nehru, now, you are democracy. You should join us. We are democracy. And Nehru said, thank you, but I cannot. Because I want peace. India wants peace. So, and PRC, you may not like them, but that's not the point. Diplomacy, you deal with those who are in power and you talk to them. What you talk is different,
True.
but you have to talk. Okay. Then, in 1950, later, in June or so, John Foster Dulles, you must have heard of
I
him.
heard his name.
Well, my generation used to say Duller, Dulles. He approached Vijayalakshmi Pandit, Nehru's sister,
Yeah.
ambassador in Washington. Look, we have an idea. In place of China, why don't you come in
Okay.
as a permanent member?
Of the UN Security.
And when China has to come in, that is PRC has to come in, they will come in as an ordinary member.
Okay, so this came up to the table.
No, I mean, they approached
Okay.
Vijayalakshmi Pandit.
Okay.
Now, Vijayalakshmi Pandit, without consulting Delhi, meaning her brother, she said thank you, but no.
Okay. So then
Because it will be wrong on our part
Mm.
to take China's place. Okay? But there again, there is a deeper logic there. That is, you have to amend the charter for India to get in. To amend the charter, the P5 have to agree.
The whole.
Now, P5 includes, okay, you leave out China, I mean, assuming, okay? But Soviet Union has to agree. Now, the Soviet Union had boycotted the Security Council meetings because China was not admitted. So, there was no question of America being able to deliver what it was offering. Okay? So, Nehru was right, Vijayalakshmi Pandit was right. Okay? Second was in 1955, when Nehru went to Moscow, Bulganin. He said, we were thinking of proposing India as a sixth permanent member. So Nehru said, yes, but the time has not come. Again, it is not for Bulgarin to offer it. And another thing is that if we are seen as a candidate of Moscow, that is not good for us. If both Moscow and Washington say, we want you there, we can consider it. And I'm sure we would have agreed. But if one of them says, okay. Now coming to the reform. This reform process has been going on for a long time. Basically, you know the G4. Who are the G4?
The G4 country, Japan, India, Germany, and the fourth country is, I guess, Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah.
This G4 was formed sometime in 2004, I think. There again, there is a story. At the UN, these four countries and South Africa had met at the highest level. And it was agreed that there will be a G5 to be announced tomorrow.
Which included South Africa.
South Africa at a press conference. Well, the next day, the four were ready. That is, you know, the four. And they were waiting for the fifth, who didn't turn up.
Why?
Then a message came from the foreign minister. Sorry, my president regrets, because he had second thoughts. He cannot agree to be a candidate unless he gets the approval of OAU,
Organization of African Unity.
which is correct, you know.
Yeah, because Africa should have a voice in.
I mean, Africa should choose.
Yeah. True.
South Africa cannot choose itself. Okay. So G4. Now, to my mind, G4 has not made any progress. Well, there is a lot of talk about it, but I don't think they will make it. I'll tell you why. G4 has been going about it in the wrong way. Because let's look at the individual countries. Germany. Italy is against it. Italy says, if Germany, why not Italy?
Why not that?
Okay? So, there is opposition, strong opposition to Germany. In fact, at that time, the Italian ambassador was very clever. He started a coffee club
Yeah, I was going to mention it.
So anyone can come.
It includes the member of all those there
Yeah,
that against
yes,
the G4.
including Pakistan.
Yeah,
also
and
they
Canada
say.
too, I guess.
Canada. Well, you know, the coffee club. It's not a formal club, but you come in. Okay, that is one.
Mm.
Then you take Japan. China doesn't want Japan.
Mm.
But Korea doesn't want Japan.
Mm.
Okay? All right? Then Brazil, Argentina and Mexico.
Mm. They don't.
They don't want Brazil.
Mm.
In other words, and India, Pakistan doesn't want India. China doesn't want India.
Mm.
Okay? In other words, they formed a group against whose individual members there was great opposition. Okay? Now, instead of that, if they had taken the line, we need to
They formed this-
increase the number of seats,
Mm.
permanent seats, by 4, 5 or 6, whatever it is,
Mm.
and the choice naturally will be for the General Assembly.
Mm.
Those who get the highest number,
Mm.
they will get it. Instead of my saying, I'm the candidate, vote for me, I
It's
should have said,
wrong.
let there be more vacancies.
True.
And at that time, after the charter has been amended, say, I am a candidate.
Mm.
You see, the Security Council, UN General Assembly elections are very subtle. I'll tell you, when I was in Doha, since you know you had indicated earlier that you would like to hear,
Mm.
I was there. This was in the 1992-93. India was standing, Japan was standing for the same seat.
Mm.
Then you know what happened? I was asked to go and speak to the Qatar foreign minister, so I met him.
Mm.
So he told me, Excellency, Qatar supports India's candidature.
Mm.
So I thanked him,
Mm.
and we talked about other things. Then I sent a telegram. You send a telegram,
Mm.
secret telegram. I said, this is what the
Qatar
foreign minister has told me. Second paragraph, but I don't take him seriously because he has pledged support to Japan, which is investing billions of dollars in LNG. So I would, third paragraph, however, we should not write it off, we should continue.
Mm.
Now, Delhi, in my ministry, they included Qatar among those who were supporting India.
Okay.
All right? Then, second part of the story.
Mm.
The Bangladeshi ambassador was a good friend of mine.
Mm.
He was DPR, Deputy Permanent Representative in New York before coming there. So,
Yes, sir.
yeah, so he told me, Fabian, you will get X votes.
Mm.
Now, that was precisely the number of votes which we got.
Mm.
We lost, of course.
Mm.
And it is in my book, Diplomacy Indian Style.
Understand.
You see? I mean, the number and all that.
Mm.
How many?
Mm.
So what I mean is, it's a little subtle.
Mm.
We don't understand well.
So, Ambassador, where do you see this reform process going on in
No,
the future?
as of now, nowhere. Because another thing, when America says that it supports India's
Mm.
claim to be a permanent member, when France says, when Britain says, well, take it with a pinch of salt. Because if I am the president of France,
Mm.
if I want to send you Rafale
Mm.
aircraft
Mm.
or some other big deal,
Mm.
then I will make a statement.
Yeah, it's this making a statement and completing the
You see?
what
and
you speak
and,
is
and
very
China will never agree.
Yeah.
Only thing is that China doesn't have to say it is opposing.
Mm.
It says, what is it, convoluted. Yes, we understand and recognize India's claim to play a more active role.
Mm.
But, you know, as I said, you read the charter.
Mm.
The General Assembly has to pass a resolution, okay, by 2/3 majority, and then it has to be ratified
Yeah, all the
by, 2/3 majority,
okay.
including the P5.
Member. in whole and soul, like all the
Yeah.
5 members have to
Yeah,
agree.
all the five. So we are far, far, far from that stage.